Hello, everyone. You're listening to the 805 Uncensored. We're a show on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network hosted by three leftists. This podcast covers a variety of topics from music to politics, news, philosophy, and more. There are no limits, which is why we call ourselves Uncensored. Please follow us on your social media and podcast platforms of choice. In this episode, we're excited to welcome Paulo. He's Peruvian, and he's here to talk a little bit about Peruvian politics and South America in general. So it's a pleasure to have you. Would you like to kind of introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, and thank you for having me on the podcast. Yes, my name is Paulo Crusadecki. I go by on the internet the Peruvian Chasqui, and I first am a human rights consultant, writer, activist, Peruvian and a U.S. citizen, born and raised in Orange County, California, near Los Angeles. And so I'm here in Peru. Um, Doing a lot of documentation uh, regarding about human rights and doing journalism work with my media collective, Los Ronderos de las Redes. And we've been doing a lot of work since the 2 years with uh, the dictatorship of Dina Boluarte. And so two years ago, which is when I was previously back here in Peru, during the coup d'état that ousted Pedro Castillo. But now, after um, after 2 years, I arrived on uh, December 16th, and my trip is until February 28th. I'm staying here for 2.5 months, visiting across the jungle, the mountains, and the coast, the three main regions of Peru, um, and as well as visiting parts of Bolivia with a delegation with the Alliance for Global Justice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be here. We're really excited to hear your perspectives on things.
Yeah, thank you, Paolo. We've known each other for a little while now, and I was excited to hear that you were going to Peru and doing, hands-on like interviews and work over there. So like I'm really grateful that you were able to carve out some time for us and give us a little bit of an insight of what's going on in Peru because I feel like a lot of Latin American countries that are not like close to like the border don't get enough representation, don't get enough of a spotlight. And like obviously like I have really close connections with Peru, and so like it like occupies like a really special place in my heart. And I believe that like not enough people, especially like on the left, care or know or like that like they don't know everything that's been going on over there, which is a lot of human right violations, like a coup d'etat orchestrated by the US and like a puppet president that you all have now. So like I'm really excited for this. But I guess if you could please briefly summarize the events that took place, like that led to the coup, and then like the aftermath for those, just kind of like fill us in on like who the president was, like how he was elected, and like what happened after that, and who's the president. Just like a brief summary, please.
Yes, and I know that's how it's going to be a very long one though, because he's very important. Because of the unique political situation we have here in Peru, it's a very far right led country, very culturally conservative with machismo, and so he became one of the recent leftist presidents uh, coming into power through the elections. And previously, elections in Peru have been that are that are not indigenous, and so he became one of the first humble people as an indigenous Rondero teacher. He was the president of his teachers union, and who led an important teacher strike in 2017, 2018. And that's what led him to prominence, to being the invited candidate as a presidential candidate in the 2021 elections. And he was invited by Vladimir Cerrón's party, Peru Libre, which means Free Peru. And so they have a Marxist-Leninist stance, connections with Cuba. They go to Venezuela as well. But when it came to the winning after the election, Keiko Fujimori and her party, after defeating the far right into the elections, he still had a lot of battles to get to as president. Because he never held a political office before, he had a lot of obstructionism from the Congress, and Congress was held by the first the Popular Party, the Fujimori Party, and
are right wingers, and they have like a history of fascism in the country.
Historically, yes, and the Fujimori is like a dynasty, like the Trumps, who have corruption charges, pending corruption charges on them, but they had tried to win the elections to many ways in getting into power, because they are U.S. allies. They traveled to the U.S. They studied it over there. I'm talking about Keiko Fujimori, Kenji Fujimori, her brother. Whilst the Alberto Fujimori was president, they gave money to launder all the way into the U.S. And so it's part of the many corruption side of that government. But what he's best known for is his neoliberal doctrine and his crimes against humanity. But President Pedro Castillo, only less than 2 months, no, not 2 months, 2 years, from 2021 to 2022, is a very short term, but there have been recently more short terms of previous presidencies, and it's because of the consistent obstructionism of the Congress, trying to undermine any progress from happening, retaining their Fujimori's way of things, keeping everything as it is with the 1993 Constitution, of which that's when the Alberto Fujimori became a dictator, and he implemented a new constitution. And so Castillo had tried to do good things when he was president. He could barely pass some, minimal reforms for the country, but the people were hoping for big changes. His campaign slogan was "No más pobres en un país rico," which means no more poor people in a rich country. And so, similar to the U.S., we see a lot of poor people, extreme inequality. But Peru is one of those countries that is in the front lines, with illegal mining, illegal logging, the issue of guerrilla warfare too, was a recent part of their history. And so there has always been attacks against the left, political left here in Peru. And it's so diverse in the political left, but the media shapes it as a monolith, and as a terrorist sympathizing group people. And so they labeled the people the left, indigenous people as well, who have all been victims as well of that time period of the dictatorship by the police and military and the paramilitary, the death squads, but also the Sendero Luminoso and the Tupac Amaru revolutionary movement. They've attacked the left as well. But the 2022 period, when I was there, I stayed. I was visiting Peru twice in August and then in December. So I got to see a little bit of the Castillo government before he was ousted. But it was a real quick change things, and I saw on the telly, but what you would see on the telly is complete propaganda from the right-wing channels. That's what the mainstream media. Even they misreported the situation, what was happening in Lima, whilst I was in the jungle in the Amazon. So they had described this as Pedro's coup, even though Pedro Castillo was the one who's being ousted. This was the third time that the Congress was voting to impeach him, because he came from the party of Peru Libre, Marxist-Leninist, and so they've always demonized him and his party as terrorists. Seeking votes, and so they used sex in the form of bribery or such, for ascertain votes in the Congress.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying, like black.
And so, yes, blackmail. And yeah, they had somebody who was assassinated there. And I forgot the victim, even though the investigation led to her taxi driver was the victim. This was a hit, like a hitman or a group of hitmen that were spraying bullets at the. It's a very like a casual phenomenon nowadays in Peru, where you'll see or hear in the news that somebody was assassinated by a hitman, and they're blaming the incoming immigrants, the immigrants who have been here for a while, like the Venezuelans, the right wing. Portray them as the threat, as the thieves and such.
Same thing happens in Chile, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course in the United States.
Yeah.
And so there's still, it's a racist and xenophobic tendency, not just to immigrants, but also to people who come from the deeper Peru, the Andes, and even the Amazon, who come from rural villages, humble beginnings. They are looked down upon, and I see them in the streets as you know, street vendors,
Right.
um, uh, begging for money for to get by. Um, and it's a situation that I seen back then in 2022, that but now getting worse,
Mm-hmm.
with the higher crime, but and higher property, of course. Uh, and so about Pedro Castillo, he his family is in Mexico. His first lady, his children,
They
in
got
asylum.
asylum, right? They got political
Mhm.
asylum from AMLO, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
with the Claudia Scheinbaum, there's still a continuation with that
Okay.
relation, and with the distancing of Peru as well with Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they still have an embassy here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we'll have to see if they're going to continue having diplomatic talk or such. But um, the, the other family members do live here in Lima. They're Castillo celebration, as you could see, an relative wanting somebody released because they're a political prisoner.
Right.
Um, uh, some people say that Castillo was the victim here. And, somebody who big changes. Um, but
So just
his party. Mhm.
oh, I'm sorry. Just
Yeah.
to recap, basically what happened was the people elected a leftist president, right? It's Pedro Castillo. Then Pedro
Mhm.
Castillo was not a politician. He was like a teacher by
Yeah.
trade, right? So but the people elected him, and then he had because of the Congress being right winger, correct? So he didn't get a lot of things done, but then so
Rebellion. Uh, Similar thing for Trump, an insurrection, but
yeah,
for Castillo's case, it's he wasn't leading a rebellion. He was trying to dissolve the Congress back then because they were to coup him, to a congressional coup.
right.
Yeah,
So
and
so I'm just trying
so
to paint the
mhm,
picture here, from what
mhm.
like you've told me and what I've understood. So so then like the Congress um um got him off and then got him arrested and gave him a bunch of charges. You said 50? I didn't know it was that many. I thought, there would be like a few, but 50, that's like ridiculous.
They kept him in um, preventative sentence and kept him in prison for all these 2 years, and they kept extending these into months and months and months,
Mhm.
like dozens of months. But now they got a I think they got it figured out that it wants to sentence him for 34 years. So he will be out of politics for basically for until
Right.
basically so. And so was cheated out of this dirty game. Uh, it's a very dirty political scheme that
Yeah.
these corrupt entities do.
That Peru is very rich in natural resources. And so, what a president like Castillo would want to do is nationalize all those resources and make them for the people. And that's Congress is so against, because they're the ones who control all, like, most of those markets, or, who will be making deals with companies like Tesla, selling them lithium, like, exporting things. And that's why the US is wanting to do and encourages it and like funds it or whatever, like never talks about any of the humanitarian violations that Dina's government, has done, because in the protests, like, they've killed like many people, right? Ever since that the coup started against the current puppet president, and the police had like killed like indiscriminately like whoever they want, but the US hasn't said a word. It's all fine, and it's because they want like all those natural resources that Peru has.
Exactly. It's very similar to what has happened all throughout history, from Africa to through colonialism and the exploitation by the French, the British, and so there is a region in Puno that has lithium. They previously, in 2023, they sent troops over there. There are U.S. bases, about 5 of them here across Peru. But there's just one new installation of a space station, I guess, that they're trying to create in Piura, close to the southern border of Ecuador. So they want to expand their relation militarily speaking with Peru. Um, and, but culturally, as well, as it's important, are losing ground by a lot. So culturally, the uh, the music, the similar themes are the styles are and fashion are still resonant to many Peruvians. But economically, it's distancing itself from the United States. You see here to battle there. The General Laura Richardson of U.S. Southcom has made that clear many times before in her speeches, that she sees that there is a presence of Russia, China, mainly in China, I see here, that has been economically building through investments. And Peru is one of these important countries doing so here, with that they recently inaugurated in 2024.
That was
Where
partly funded by China, right? That airport.
It's a port for incoming shipping, ships to come here. So it's building a new shipping lane instead of going to the northern hemisphere, like to the U.S., where I believe the China has a port in Washington, I believe it was, and in the state of Washington, I mean. And so now they have another one in the Pacific Rim here. And down here in Peru, building connections for other countries, not just China, but the rest of Asia that has ships that could get through the shipping lane, and bring their products to the through the through Peru, landlocked country, and to Colombia, and Venezuela, Ecuador, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also, yeah, I know what you're talking about, like the seaport, right? That they're building, or they have built it already. I'm not sure if it's done.
Yes, it's already
But
completed.
there's also a new airport in Lima that is being built, right? Like,
I've heard that they were building the like a new addition to the Lima International Airport, which is the same one.
okay.
And since I was there visiting it, they did change it a bit, but not as much. It still looks same interiorly. But when I was visiting it 2 years ago, outside it looks kind of different with it. Um, I guess they may be expanding it, like building another airport. I'm not sure, but the the U.S. has a presence here from January to December. That's
They have
what the
troops, right? They have troops on the ground over there, right?
yes, that's what the Congress has agreed upon. Keeping these troops permanently for 2025. They were here as security for the um, APEC event in of the 2024. So they were here, um, uh, actually close to where I'm staying um, at the in San Borja, Lima. It's kind of a wealthy area, um, and there's a lot of traffic here. There's a lot of protests.
It's
There were a
chaotic.
lot of protests. Yeah. Um, that's what brings the traffic here. So there were protests at the time of the APEC summit, where China was over there meeting Dina Boluarte, um, uh, as well Joe Biden. Joe Biden was here. It's one of those uh, rare moments that they come face to face. Last time they were here, summit actually was in 2023 of November, where it was in San Francisco. I was there protesting against Dina Boluarte, Joe Biden, and so forth, when they were hosting it in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Move on a little bit, and I know you have been working or interviewing like indigenous communities over there. Would you tell me like a little bit about that experience, and also like what they think of like the president and what they think of the coup, and like just what's the sentiment, like how are people feeling, like what are they saying? Yeah.
So I didn't get to meet with the indigenous tribes directly. They live much deeper in the Amazon. Many of them want to stay secluded. Um, uh, Sometimes I have interactions with the people, but they of course address it normally. They dress uh, other Peruvians. And they won't be able to uh, told apart, but they um, speak Spanish as well. Um, uh, in Tarapoto, which was the city I was staying in, it's much more of a tourist city. But I did get to visit much more like a town, um, like Lamas. Lamas is a town that has um, people of the indigenous people of Waiku, who historically moved from the Inca Empire. They left um, to not be a part of the Incans rule, to form their own community within the Amazon. Um, and so they still have the culturally uh, um, their Andean roots there. Um, they have the Cusqueño flag as well, though. It's just funny to see. It is the seven striped rainbow.
Do you have it?
Uh,
Do you? I know you have so many flags. Do you?
I I didn't since I didn't get to go to Cusco. I didn't get to.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
but I do have the wifi. This
Oh,
is of course the flag of the Andean people of all of them, and
a little bit more.
uh,
So that
in Peru,
represents like
yeah,
the indigenous people of South America, correct?
yes, Ecuador to Chile, Argentina, Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. Um, and they have in Peru they call it the bandera de la Tahuantinsuyo, uh, one of the Incan leaders, one of the last Incan leaders um, before the collapse of the empire. They use that flag for the representation of the Andean people. Cusco's flag is much more for the Incan roots. Um that's why it's a rainbow stripes. These are checkered pattern, and the design is also found in Ecuador because of the uh, people are of Incan descendants too. Uh, but
That's interesting.
they're yeah, it was a coincidence or funny to see it in the jungle there because the jungle are different groups of people. And for what I'm wearing here,
Hmm.
they have a different style of indigenous design. This is the Shipibo Kunibo, the combined, conjoined as people of the Yali Yali River, which is closer to Iquitos, the capital city of the department of Loreto, which is one of the rivers that is important for the Amazon. That is beginning a stream that stretches uh, uh, that both uh, goes together to reach to Brazil.
Hmm.
That's where it ends. So these people, of course, have been living here for years, um, and more than centuries of Peru's history. Um, and there are, people who have uh, the white Peruvians, the criollos, who say, "Oh, I'm Peruvian as well," and so they have used their design as well, and claimed it as their own, or did not give them credit.
At
It's
least
that
that's
type of racist attitude that it's for free, and to use, and it's because the indigenous population don't speak Spanish well,
mhm.
that they have a hard time going to the courts to justify that.
Right.
Um, but it's obviously indigenous because of the roots of historic themes we know. Um, it's just recently that I read about it of Agnes Semenes, something like that. Um, these are rich white um, celebrity status people um, who get all the credit in the media of Peru,
Wait, I
and
think I
so
remember this scandal. It was like
mhm,
not too long ago they were starting to sell
right,
in Palavela, right? Like this
yeah,
like fab like factory made, like bulk clothing but with like indigenous design and like no credit, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we came up with this collection," and just some like, like random white like Peruvians or whatever And there was like a big controversy regarding to that, as there should be, because these things keep happening, and like like people still don't get it, that is not right. Like, bro, like stop stealing from people's culture and like not give them any credit and like pretending that it's yours. Like, it's okay, like if we like educate and like oh, look, like I made this design with this people, and like we collaborated, and like they're aware and they're getting a portion, or like we're splitting, and like acknowledging and teaching. But passing them off as like your own stuff is like, I can't even. But I was gonna ask you, you met with Presidente Castillo recently, right? And you had kind of like an interview. And I just wanted to know if you could like kind of share a little bit about that. And like, I know that he has a lot of important things to say, a lot of messages that, you might want to get out there. So yeah, I want to hear about it.
So I met him for the first time on the 12th of December. I flew to the Amazon, and so this was a important visit. I Before that day, I met with his lawyer, and so he was able to arrange an appointment to meet him at the prison. And I only live about 30 minutes away from Ate, which is where the city he's being held at. Um, and the prison is called Barbadillo Prison. It's a maximum security prison that is pretty run down. I only saw like 4 guards there, and the um, the prison is and only holds 2 prisoners because it's only for presidential political people like that. Yes, used
Oh
to
my
be
God.
3, but Fujimori was pardoned, so he was released and got a pension by the corrupted Congress, and then he passed away.
Was he
So
in house arrest? Yeah, he just passed away like last year, like late last year. I was
he
like,
was yeah he died on 9/11.
oh yeah,
The
that's
same
right.
day, the same day that his um, uh, historic opponent, um, Maya Guzman, uh, died in, which he was held in a different prison in Callao, central of Lima. Um, and so it's just a funny coincidence seeing that, and very historical that I got to visit this location here. So after meeting with Castillo's lawyer, which I did an interview with him before, with him about that, because there are something that he cannot say in prison, um, and so uh, unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to film, so I had to keep my camera, my phone, my microphone, and everything away. Um, uh, I didn't bring them into the prison. Um, so the guards let me in. I had to do some procedure of as a first time coming in there, and they jokingly said that I cannot say uh, anything about praising Mao Zedong, and because communism is illegal here in Peru. Um, uh, and so they that's how they view things, um, because it's a very far right. But the guards, they were they're acting nice,
They were joking
as a
around,
Peruvian
like,
culture.
yeah, I can
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that.
yeah, and yeah, they were just watching their football match. Yeah, there's really nothing else to do with the two prisoners that are older
Right.
and people, um, and there's nobody waiting to outside to have a like a heist or something,
Right.
but to break them out. But yeah, they had some rundown vehicles in there. Um, they had an ambulance there. Um, and so after meeting the president, I joked with him about this is the ambulance that Fujimori had to be inside and to taken to the hospital because of his old age. He got that point. But when I met him, he was dressed sharp, a gray polo shirt, and he looked clean. He had his haircut. He was shaved. He looked physically well. Um, he when I spoke to him, he was psychologically sane as well. He was, to my mind, um, good. Uh, but everything we talked about was about his liberation. That's what was really missing. Um, he and I were talking about his roots, my roots as well. um, he uh, spoke about that he grew up in Cajamarca. He was, uh, as I said, a rondero and peasant. He never came to the big city of Lima. Um, uh,
Rondero is like a peasant, somebody who takes care of animals, herds.
it's that would be a campesino, but it's rondero as like a patroller for the security, where there is no police presence. Ronderos are the people who are part of the community that are um, um, communal police people. And I met some of them when I was in Tahuarcoto, because Cajamarca is not that far away. They have these services in different parts of the jungle, because um, it's quite rural. Um,
Oh yeah, I
the
had
police
my
are mainly in the big cities or in the city. Yeah.
okay.
Um, the 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 president was talking about his time a bit as president at the office at the palace. Um, like for example, he wanted to try meet with Nicolas Maduro. I think they met once before or so, but like having another meeting again, but the Congress denied him from going to uh, 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 whether that was in Venezuela or another country where
Mhm.
their meeting was going to be held together. Um, they denied his entrance, um, or his his when he was trying to go to the inauguration ceremony of Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia. Um, he was one of the presidents who didn't get to go, and that's because the obstruction of Congress. Um, he cannot have in Peru. You need permission from Congress to travel. That's what Dina Boluarte has been given. She has traveled all the way to China. She has met with Xi Jinping and she has traveled all the way to Davos, Switzerland, for this year's World Exploitation Forum, as I call it. The WEF, where the elites visit there to have their um, new world order meetings and such that they conduct there with the elites. As their these types of meetings to sell Peru as a venta patria, sell the uh, entice the rich to buy into Peru for their minerals, for our resources that we don't get a profit. We don't see any money. We don't see any investment, we don't see any progress here. But
Destruction
in,
and freaking
yeah,
ecological damage and
indeed,
exploitation.
yeah,
Nothing good comes out of it. And like the same thing happened in Chile, you know, like Pinochet changed the constitution and he sold off the country and all of its natural resources. And we like Peru, Chile, and Bolivia, I think, have the lithium triangle.
it's
So it's
Argentina.
like Argentina. So it's like you know, it's like a place that everybody wants to get to, and like, you know, we haven't even mentioned like what Elon Musk tweeted, that he would coup whoever he wanted, and then, you know, like lo and behold, Peru was couped. And like there is
It's because Peru is it's similar to Syria. Um, they viewed it as a weakened state. It's like you have just this leftist president who cannot do anything because the Congress has so much power, and the Constitution as well fundamentally
yeah,
uh, stops him from doing any nationalization. Even though he wanted to nationalize lithium,
right, yeah,
and and so here, well, it's similar to Chile's constitution that they still have that, and they were seeking a constituent assembly. So Chile as well still has a dictator era constitution.
which
So
we tried to pass one after, you know, the revolts of 2019 and 2020, and they wrote this whole constitution, and like it was like, you know, like very favorable for the people, and it didn't pass. Like the Chileans didn't go out and vote, and then yeah, so we're stuck still with Pinochet's constitution that basically sold off even water to private investors.
right,
So what, like Chile is one of the few countries with privatized water.
yeah, and I was I've been seeing here because of the constant negative things we're seeing about the what's coming out from Congress, or what's the social problems are rising here in Peru, whether that's high crime or exploitation, oppression, and whatnot. They had it's like in the genocide in Palestine, where Israel completely commits more heinous crimes against humanity, so that it's underreported, or that you won't be able to consume it all because there's just a new one that came about, and you have to worry about this new issue here, or a new one, and a new one, and a new one. That's what has been happening in these past 2 years. You know, they didn't get to do that much with Castillo, but now with Dina Boluarte, his former vice president, who made a pact with the right wing to stay in power and to kill people to remain in power and to prove her the point there, prove her allegiance, and they had used her as this puppet too. Um, to showcase Peru to investors to Wall Street, Davos, and such. And
Oh, sorry. Whenever
they,
Jordan just raised his hand, so whenever you get a chance, I think he was going to say something.
yeah. And so with all these problems here, I had to. This is what was preoccupying in my mind when I was meeting with the president, because he doesn't get any TV or paper. He's locked out of the news cycle, um, where his lawyer, who comes about, who visits him, tells him, tries to keep him updated about the crisis in Peru, um, on certain issues. But there's so many, from the Amazon to the Andes to contamination, lead contamination, poisoning the mercury even in the water. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a common thing that with this government negligence, they're able to do a lot more heinous things um, with Dina Boluarte.
Right.
Um, mhm.
They I guess they have like the free pass to commit all the acts that, like they wanted to in the beginning anyway. But what were you gonna say, Jordan? Are you around?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of expand on Paulo's point, talking about authoritarian strategy of shock and awe, which is what we're seeing, with Trump, which is what we saw with Hitler, which is really what we've seen with every other authoritarian regime that's ever rose up, is you flood the public with so many distractions and so many negative stories that you're effectively able to just assert complete control over the population because there's so many fascistic tendencies that people can look at that it's impossible to keep up with everything.
It's so hard. It
Precisely.
really, yeah,
And
like
so that's why there's a draw to pessimism very strongly here. And um, uh, within my family, when I talk to them about having a revolution, whether it's here or in the US, um, uh, they say it's too dangerous, or that um, it doesn't happen here in this country, or it's it's not possible. But the things can change one way or another. That people didn't expect that Petro Castillo would win against Keiko Fujimori. My whole family voted for Keiko, even though I was the only one who voted for Petro Castillo. Um, and these family members who live in here, they're right wing, but in the U.S. they're somewhat liberal or Republican or Democrat, and so they have different tendencies, and they still vote for the same heir to dictator.
so.
So
I just wanted to add to that a lot of Peruvians are right wingers because of what you said earlier, because of like liberation groups like El Camino, remind me, El Camino Alumbrado,
El Sendero Luminoso.
Sendero Luminoso, almost had it. El Sendero Luminoso, like all this other like indigenous groups that have fought the government have been labeled as like terrorists, and they have been labeled, they are leftist group. So like a lot of like Peruvians are still like very brainwashed to the fact that oh, the government says that these people are terrorists, so they must be. So I'm not gonna like the left, and I'm gonna be like very like right wing. So I just wanted to add like a little bit of like nuance to maybe why your family is right winger, because that's something that's common. Though that Fujimori has a record, like his family, like his daughter was, going against Castillo, has a record of like stealing from people, like from the government, like millions, right? They have a record of like human, how do you say human,
Human rights
human
violation.
rights violations, like he was literally a dictator, like, but because it's like quote unquote legal by the government, like people will still like go to that, rather have that than like any type of like liberation movement that is led and like by the people.
And I also
Yeah.
see a parallel with that with like the ICE raids in the US, you know?
The what? I'm
Ice
sorry, what?
The ICE raids,
ice raids.
I see a parallel with that. How basically everything that Trump is doing is constitutionally on paper legal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And I mean, and it has been going on, for a long time, but people will people will really, really fixate with the legality of things, and they will not question whether it's moral or humane. as long as it's legal. And they don't realize that most of the time, like, legality does not equal like something moral. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like
it's not
I made this point before, Cami, like talking about Jim Crow laws or talking about slavery. Both of those
right.
things were illegal, but they're of course obviously morally reprehensible.
Yeah. So,
This has reminded me of a point that the president, Castillo, said to me, which was that there are four things to consider about our oppressors. Well, they have the power, they have the money, of course, but they don't have the people, and they don't have the reason to rule us. They don't have any morality that to stand on here,
mhm.
and we're just waiting for the people to believe in the message of that only the people can save the people, or solo el pueblo salva el pueblo, which is the same message that Castillo gave um, on his ousting day. So he was uh, he's not forgotten by many Peruvian leftists. He's still known that he's in the mind. Um, in his mind, he's. I think he still feels that there's a positive change here in Peru. He still believes it, and um, he looks into the youth. I'm trying to say,
So he still has
the
hope,
youth,
even though he's like in
definitely
prison,
so.
even though he was cooped, even though, like, things have gone way south. Like,
After 2 years, yeah.
yeah, like, he still has hope. And I love that. Like, I like revolutionary optimism, I love that, like, he's still in that frame of mind, and like he told you this, and like made a great point that, like, none of these leaders are moral. And like, we really hope that people, like, are gonna open their eyes to that fact. And I guess, from his visit, was that like the most important, like, relevant thing that you took, like, from him?
I would say so, but he, he after I visited him this month, earlier in January, middle of January, so he was asking for the courts to for house arrest, of
Mm.
which he was denied that. That's what the recent change that I thought would have seen um, him coming out. Um, but I mean, there are other presidents, former presidents, who have been couped in Peru that have received jail time just to house arrest,
Mhm.
um, and through pending investigations and such. But uh, in a form of a preventative detention.
Mhm.
But with these um, very egregious laws that Congress has passed, they made that preventative detention is annulled. They made that you cannot investigate the war crimes, the crimes against humanity, uh, that were committed by the death squads of Alberto Fujimori's government, nor of the police and military. Um, they made a lot of amnesty for those right wingers,
So they're basically
but
pardоning themselves, and
mhm,
not
but no
leaving.
amnesty for the
Right.
terrorists as they
Right.
see it. So
Um.
it's a one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And very much like it's, like a copy of like multiple governments. I'm not just gonna say here because I know it happens everywhere, right? Like, where the people liberation movements get often labeled as terrorists, and they have every law against them, and then, like, the people that are actually doing the most harm at, like, the greatest impacts, they get, like, like the best end of the stick. So it's so frustrating, and it's even more frustrating how so many people, like, don't get it, and like they're still like, oh no, like, the fascists are better. But I know that you have to be somewhere pretty soon, so I just wanted to say, like, do you have anything else that you want to share with us, or
I could extend to 15 more minutes.
okay.
Uh, there, I would say that besides the politics, I love being in Peru. Um, I love to visit my family here, but I see that the poverty is increasing. There's a lot of hardship too, at the same time, and that's what's squeezing the youth out of this country, where they're going to have to do, uh, live in the U.S. or try to, because Donald Trump administration is trying to kick them out, or try to impede people from applying for visas and such. But move to Europe as well. That's what they young people have in their eyes, because they've lived a humble backgrounds. They are tired of living in poverty, and they don't see that as a good thing, because in the United States we get all the luxury. We have much more higher living standards than in the global South, and the global South is ready for a revolution, definitely so. And, besides the aspect of the forced migration, um, they are tired of the political control that the U.S. government and the European powers have um, over Africa, Asia, and Latin America and the Caribbean. And so, um, they're also waiting us to have our revolution here, so we have that immense sway, uh, you know, way, and so they could now foster as a sovereign country. Um, for example, for Peru's case, um, they had that a long time ago. That was with the Soviet aligned Juan Velasco Alvarado, who was who achieved power in Peru through a military coup, and so he's considered as a dictator, but as in the leftist one, who made Quechua as a second language to learn in schools. Um, these programs are not offered as much in the Peruvian educational system, um, because it's all integrating into Spanish and then other Western languages, maybe Portuguese and English. But the that's what's cutting off away from the flow of the Andes, deep Peru, the Quechuas and the Aymars, which are the ones who keep they still have their languages intact through thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yes, right.
So they're because of that, because of all this U.S. controlled government, the racism still exists, poverty still exists there. This racial hierarchy still exists, looking down upon the Andean class, people who have come from humble beginnings, who could lead the change, the way to change here, just like Tupac Amaru did centuries ago. The it's a lot that Peruvians have to learn from, and I'm glad that I got that experience through a right wing family here, always in California, having that privilege there, and studying sociology, and being a sociologist in the streets of Lima, in staying in the jungle for 4 weeks, now going to the Sierras for about 4 weeks now. It would be I'll be visiting Puno, which was one of the regions that had the massacre and the most actually seen that in the most in Juliaca, Puno, most deaths. And then
That was due to like them protesting against Dina's government, correct?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it happened on the 9th of January.
Hmm.
So that's why Lima is very like Los Angeles or um, Washington D.C. as the capital. It's very disconnected from
From
the
the
rest of the country. Yeah, the country is based on a system of centralism. The centralismo is where all the wealth, all the opportunities, educational, business opportunities are all
yeah.
coming to, forcing everybody to live in poverty, live in basically favela states, uh, a state of living, and then they are forced to having to travel all the way to the coast, to Lima, the port city,
To like
which has
survive
this
money, right? Yeah.
yeah, which has this colonial architecture. You can see that it is uh, uh, colonial-esque city still, but just a much more modernized with a bit of skyscrapers and such. Uh, yeah, and so that's that these designs are westernized.
Oh yeah.
Um, westernization that came to Peru. I mean, I seen a lot of KFC, Papa John's Pizza,
Oh,
Domino's Pizza, Starbucks, and Dunkin' Donuts.
it's so
Um,
bad. It's like,
yeah,
and I would say within the last 5 years, it's become even worse. Just like the level of I guess franchising from like American fast food to all over like little even like little remote towns in like Latin America, and it's just like fucking it breaks my heart. I saw a Wendy's in a historical house in like some San Juan Viejo in Puerto Rico, and I was like, no, just like kill me now because I swear, everywhere I go, there is like a freaking American franchise, and
I saw your
it
post about
upset
that.
me so bad. Like, I swear. But yeah. So like, yeah. Sorry, I just went on a rant because that's
yeah. So
so
those are the those are the food and businesses that still exist, but when it comes to cars, you see a lot more Asian cars, whether
bad.
it's the Japanese, the Korean, um, or Chinese. China has the BYDs here much more. It was the first time I seen these cars, like a Suzuki, um,
Like the
Jack, and
Chanel
other
or
ones.
something.
Like
And then Paolo, I wanted to tell
mhm,
you, I was there last April, and
yes,
like I go there constantly, right? Like every couple of years, I'm going to Peru. And so this last time I went, and I don't know what this street is, but I was just like amazed by just like how many billboards and bright lights they had in this one avenue, and I was like, what changed? Because it was like from like one year to the other, all these billboards and all this like bright lights everywhere, and they're so bright that you look at them and like your eyes will literally hurt. You know what I'm talking about?
I just passed by those when heading to La Molina, which is very rural,
Yes,
going up up the
yeah,
city,
that's where I was
and you can
going.
see the view. That's where I like the curves, but that's where the bright. I just saw it at nighttime, but I think you did too, Ben. Uh, they had the blue lights as well with the white lights to accenturize it, and it's unnecessary, unnecessary propaganda everywhere.
Yeah.
The immense amount of propaganda like that is what makes the city much more worse. Whether that's in the U.S. or in Europe or anywhere. um, you have to have like a socialistic theme of having communal arts more, having a style designs or uh, of community parks and such, but also spaces for you to walk, to hike, and uh,
and to
to ride your bike around,
right also
or
because
have a gondola or stuff. Have have just a design of the people having strength to fight against the system. And where's all that? It's in Venezuela, it's in Nicaragua, it's in Cuba. Memorials and such that remember their martyrs. Here we don't even remember them as with the statue. We are only remembering them as a mural, which I saw one side. One in Tarapoto 2 years ago, and then when I came back, I saw it was being painted over to have a window over there. So
fucking kill me.
they
No,
even painted over a Maxima Acuna one at Barranco. Barranco is a famous street with lots of murals. Barranco is a tourist destination, and so the mayor of Barranco is a right winger too, and so they painted her over. And who is Maxima Acuna? Well, people are not going to remember her anymore, but she was an environmentalist. Well, she became a water and land defender because she's a campesina from Cajamarca, from the same cities, the same region that Castillo was from. So he's been elevating the same problems as her, which was her case was that a huge company was trying to steal her land, because they wanted to build, drill, baby, drill, basically,
mhm.
mine the resources on the land because they excavated and took samples, and then now they uh, try to force her like a Trump level of diplomacy, if you can stoop that way, stoop to that level. It was burning her crops, burning her land, just to try to kick her out of um, her land, even though she had the deed, she had the legal right to be there.
This is
So
actually
she had to.
use like to
She and
get lands.
it took dozens of years to fight this legal battle and win. But there's a lot more cases like that. She's not the only victim, but
Yeah,
she got representation because in the media because it's a common fight here.
yeah,
Peru is a front lines for all that, from the agro business uh, sweeping into the regions of the provincias, the impoverished regions, to uh, to change the colors of the water
yeah.
from into yellow water that you cannot even drink it.
Right.
Your animals, they cannot even drink it. You cannot use any cleaning water. I have been using bottled water, um, or alkaline water, a machine, to I forgot what the word is, but desalinate or something. But
Yeah.
they have they want to privatize water here in the city of Lima too,
Right.
and the city of Lima is a very important city where the elites live in as well. But it's going to impact possibly the much more poorer regions.
Right.
You have your Hollywood, you have your Beverly Hills, um,
Mhm. We
and
don't do this.
that's it. Yes, and so they get the better. Uh,
They get to cover
that's
everything.
where the tourists go.
Yeah.
Yeah, better
So
lands.
I was gonna say that if I'm not like wrong, I believe that last year was the year where most indigenous land defenders were killed in the Americas. And there is a like like people don't know, but like indigenous people that defend their land and get assassinated left and right in South America. Like it's not uncommon, and it's all by these big corporations that want control of whatever natural
Mhm.
resources they have or they're defending, and they will just kill them. Like they don't even give a fuck. They don't like right now in Chile. There is a case for one of our indigenous land defenders, Julia. I don't know her last name, but yeah, she's been missing for 80 days now, and right before like she went missing, like she was ¿cómo se dice? Como que la amenazaron. She was threatened by like this big
Yes.
corporation, and then she went missing. And she's a grandma, and you know, it's just so disgusting. Like they will literally like stop at nothing. They don't care. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, it is the tactics of a mafia state, not just the government, but corporations. It's
Yeah,
the capitalism
yeah.
in a grander scale.
It was
Um,
Julia Chuñil, which is I'm a Mapuche land defender. And yeah,
uh-huh.
I mean she, you know, she's more than likely not alive anymore, and it's so sad. And it's, you know, yeah, and like you were
Yeah,
saying, is not just the government. It's like this big corporation, like mining, logging. The salmon industry in Chile is really predatory, and bad in like every aspect, like environmentally, like anything that you can think of. And you know, they just hire people to kill
yep,
the government
yeah,
to.
yeah. They're forcing us to live in poverty, whilst they're stealing our land, just like in occupied Palestine.
Mhm.
And they, if we resist, we are murdered. We are assassinated, whether that's by the government, by the police and military, or by the hired goons that they have, and whether that's other poor people who are desperate for money, or um, foreigners. Um, and so that's what's the case of Peru is so important to elevate for a free Peru, for the liberation of the ousted president, um, and the justice for Peru, um, for the ouster of this government. This government is completely illegitimate, and it tries to legitimize other illegitimate people like Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, who was this U.S. puppet presidential candidate for Venezuela's election, and they still try to run him as a oh, he did win, and then he just recently visited Lima with
Oh, really?
the president. Yeah, so the dictator Dina Boluarte gave him the highest medal of honor, which is the lowest that she could give, which is the medal order of Sun. It's something like that. It's like the Medal of Freedom that Joe Biden gave to Hillary Clinton and the other uh, awful people. But
Stop. Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad, and it's like, you know, the same story and like the same struggles and the same like oppressors, you know. And once you get one, you're gonna get all of like the people's struggles, because they're not that different, and like we share so much in common. And like that's why like it's so sad to see like animosity between like Chileans and Peruvians, like people, you know, like the people, you know, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of like our listeners don't know, but like there is like a lot of animosity between like the people of Chile and the people of Peru because of like previous wars, or like like stupid little conflicts like where's Pisco from, or you know, like all those things, which is like an alcoholic beverage. But people get really caught up in this, like to like hate your neighbor. And like, you know, like if we could just like put aside like all those pettiness and like, you know, silly things that don't matter, and like understand that like, oh bro, like we have the same struggles, we have the same oppressors, like
mhm,
we should be united, like, and we should not like, you know, let the silly little things come between us, you know.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, that type of chauvinism that you were referring to, and nationalism, or cultural patriotism like that, it's not good. It's to divide the people against the largest threat, which is the West, Canada, Spain, the U.S. are out to seek out our resources. Even though we should have a form of cultural patriotism, I'm patriotic about Peru for its land, for Machu Picchu, and for its people. Even though we are in poverty, we are strong people. We have a lot of unions. We have people who are on the left that are still old and alive, and still, young people who are seeing the problems here in this country that want to do changes here. And we have to view, our compatriots as our compatriots, not as potential threats.
Or right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wish we were more united in that regards, and
Indeed.
the people, and because that's our real strength, right? Is the people, and is the numbers, and is how we all together who share the same oppressors and same struggles. If we're all to get together, that's our strength. Our strength is in the numbers and us unifying, and I wish we would get there.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're so far off, and then with so many things that come between us, and capitalism wanting to only we can barely survive, right? We so many of us are working and barely meeting ends meet, or am I saying that right? Whatever. But
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, we're so preoccupied with that, and so preoccupied with paying our bills and this and this and that we don't even have the time to think about this stuff, and and it's just, it sucks, and it's demoralizing. But whenever I talk to people like you, or other comrades that I have so much in common with, and that they're all in different parts of the world, and we get it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, there is hope, we're, maybe,
Yes. One last topic I want to touch on before I have to go, is that with the new Trump administration coming in, and in terms of Peru and the U.S., U.S. Has sent. Well, first of all, they captured around 300,000 Peruvians, I guess, as an irregular situation. That's what the chancellor has called it. The Peruvian chancellor called it. But that they're how many are actually being held are 300, ready to be deported, or in the process of being deported, and then 34 just have been deported today. They just arrived in Lima airport. So that's the first wave. It was currently there's going to be 40 more coming in, and then the U.S. The Peruvian government just accepts how they are, in chains and such, because that's how the U.S. government labels them as potential threats, and that's why we're kicking them out. And so they just accepted that, just like in Argentina as well. And they don't care about their citizens like that, except for Colombia, Brazil, and then Honduras. Mexico, they care about their people's dignity, and they're going to give them food, water, and shelter, and a way of repatriation, a way of reorganizing their life back in their home countries. And that's just one of the recent fights that we're seeing here when it comes to this Trump administration. But everybody's against him. Uh, Everybody in the United States. I know I can feel it all the way down here in Peru. That they're ready for street protests against marches, um, and much more, because this is going to be long for years coming in, and we're going to see a lot of beauty coming out of this mess. And yeah, the people during the incendiary flames that happened in Los Angeles, people came together to through mutual aid, and uh, there were a lot of socialist groups that were helping the people in need as well. Like, that's what's the best about people, because only the people can help the people. Because of what did Trump want to do? He wants to conditionalize the aid that he would be giving to the city of Los Angeles, like, or the county, because of their political views, because of things, that's not a leader. That's very much a divider.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's the silver lining when like everything, like it gets increasingly worse and like we have tragedies like the fires. The silver lining is that people realize that community is our only savior. So
Only we keep us safe.
What's that?
Only we keep us safe.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's hard and sad and all of that, but that's the truth. So tell us where you're going next.
Juliaca, Puno. It is the region that touches the lake of Titicaca, which that lake is an important resource for Bolivia as well. It shares a border with Peru, and I'll see if they have some tensions over there, but I think they used to, because the European government did label Evo Morales as a persona non grata in the first year of the dictatorship, and they had Peruvian troops stationed near the border as well. So they were similar to the U.S. and Mexico, threatening. Way, it's how the machista nature, the machistic, fascistic nature of the right to do these tactics instead of seeking peace and diplomacy. I mean, this government has done a lot of crimes, and are allowing a lot of crimes to happen in our country that they don't want to get out of power now, and they want to stay in power. But they did allow a election. I want to say that they have a presidential election in 2026, but they are denying a lot of people from being candidates, and denying good parties to be on the ballot. For example, one is Antaro Humala. He's a neo-fascist though, but he's anti-communist and anti-Fujimori, anti-capitalist though. So he comes from an indigenous, in pro-indigenous background, and uses the symbol of the Wipala as well. Some right-wingers portray him as a Hugo Chavez figure, but the left doesn't want a leader like that coming to power, say. And people are not trustworthy of the political parties right now, I would say. Not Peru Libre anymore, I would say. That's why Pedro Castillo has his own party, Todo con el Pueblo. It's everything with the people. That's his way of trying to win his freedom through the electoral vote. and this is something that Eugene Debs has tried to do many years ago. It's a common thing that people do. Even Imran Khan in Pakistan, another political prisoner of the West. It's a very similar case to Peru. It happened a coup that happened in the same year. Um, his struggle is the same struggle as ours. I want to extend our solidarity with that, with Pakistani people there.
Really cool. All right. I think we can start. Just like tell us where you can find us, Pablo, where we can find you. Sorry.
Yes. So yeah, I'm on Instagram as the Peruvian Chasqui. My group Los Renderos de las Redes is on Instagram as well as on Twitter. We're not going to call it X, but yeah, I also use Telegram, the Peruvian Chasqui, to where I'm posting about where I'm going, what's happening now. But I believe that this next portion of the trip is going to be a lot of fun, even though it's going to be cold, and I despise the cold. But I get to go visit the left-wing strongholds, as well as in Bolivia. Their election is this year in August, which I'm hoping to come back in July and August of 2025 to Peru and Bolivia. So at this time around, it's going to be my first visit to the landlocked country, which has just became a BRICS partner this year.
Oh, nice.
And so they have their economy changing and such, but they have an internal division within the MAS party with Evo Morales and Lucha Arce. And so they are both seek the presidential um, position again for this election, and it's also the 200th anniversary of their foundation as a country, which was through the liberation from the Spaniards with Simon Bolivar's army.
All right, pretty cool. Well, thank you so much for coming, and it's definitely interesting. And I wish you good luck on all your travels and everything. And I know you sent me the stuff for Bolivia, so maybe I'll see you there.
Oh, good. Yes, because it starts in a week. So
Wait, I thought it was in July.
No. It's in February. It is.
Oh,
February.
Okay. Never mind then. Yeah, I can't make that word.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Show.
Okay. Yes. Because coming to different parts of the trips is I get new information, or I'm forgetting some other information that I needed to say. So it's really good to probably try again, because I do want to try to visit the president again in before I leave Peru in the end of February. So we'll see if we could plan to do one in March, beginning of March, when I'm back in the U.S. and you can see all my flags in the background.
All right, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and once again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I learned a lot. It was a pleasure having you on the show. You're welcome back anytime.
Yes, thank you.
All right, that was Paulo, the Peruvian Chasqui. As always, the 8051 Uncensored is on all the major platforms. If you have any comments, questions, guest suggestions, or episode ideas, shoot us a message on Instagram or our various other social medias like TikTok. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you guys have a great night, morning, evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Stay safe out there. The revolution is you. Free Palestine.
Bye. Free Palestine.